Hi, welcome back to another video. My name's Ben. I've got a special project here today, a quick one that I wanted to do for my son. He wants to learn to spin his super sharp Karambit. If you can see, it's a wicked little knife, and he wants to spin it without the sheath on, but he's worried about getting cut. But he needs some protection, so we're going to build him a leather bracer to protect his arm and wrist as he spins it. I'm going to start with a piece of rawhide. This is thick and it's pretty sturdy. The first thing I'm going to do is create a pattern using his arm and a piece of paper. I'm just going to figure out how big we need to make the rawhide. We're going to bend it over his arm so that it's protecting the top, the front, and the back, but not the bottom. And then I'm just going to trace this onto the rawhide. I'm going to use a sharp utility knife to cut through the leather. Now we need to form it into shape, so we're going to do that by filling a bucket with water, and then we're just going to let the rawhide soak in that for a little while. I let it soak, I think I let it soak for about an hour. That's probably longer than I needed to, but let it soak in there. It gets nice and soft, and now we need to bend it into the shape that we want it to stay in. So we'll put it around his arm and kind of get the basic shape, but I don't want him to sit here while this dries, so I just tied a piece of paracord around it to keep it into shape. And then, after letting it dry overnight, it stayed in the shape that we positioned it in. You know, in ancient times they used leather as armor, and just to show you here with the Karambit, I'm going to take that same rawhide, and you can see it barely goes into the rawhide as I'm slapping it down, and I'm using some force. It's going to be connected to his hand using a softer piece of leather. This is just the biggest scrap that I could find. So I traced out my shape, and again with the utility knife I'm just going to cut out the shape. This is going to use a single finger loop to hold it onto his arm, along with some straps. We need a hole for his finger to fit in, so I'm going to cut a half circle here, and you'll see that opens up to allow enough space for his finger to go on comfortably. Here we'll just do a test fit. After test fitting, I'll trim it up just a little bit more so that it fits a little bit better, so that it doesn't cover the palm of his hand. We're going to connect the soft leather to the rawhide using a grommet. So the first thing I need to do is punch a hole in both pieces of leather. I've got a leather hole punch here, a few hits with the hammer, and we pop out a nice clean hole. Figured out the correct place on the rawhide and go through the same process. The way that grommets work is you've got two pieces. You stick the first piece in and then you put the cap over it. Then it's got a special anvil, and another piece that goes over top that you're going to hammer it down into shape. Now, anyone who's done grommets can see that I'm about to make a mistake here. I've actually put this upside down. So what happened is I had a bunch of sharp edges in there, and I tried to file them down and found that I was just making them sharper. So I had to come up with a different solution. I'm going to use a piece of scrap leather, and I'm going to just cover that up on the inside since it's going to be rubbing against his hand. I don't want him cutting up the back of his hand with the grommet, so this should protect it. But before we put that together, let's put the Velcro on. Velcro has two pieces. There's the rough piece and the soft piece. Anytime I use Velcro, I like to put the soft piece on the side that is facing the skin so that if it overlaps, pokes out or something, the soft part touching against your skin instead of the scratchy part. So I'm just going to figure out where the Velcro needs to be and mark it out. And then I'm going to use these leather stitch punches. They're like forks with sharp points on them that will poke holes into the leather so that I can just then use a needle and go up through those, and I don't have to poke holes in the leather with the needle itself. And then I've take some wax covered thread for leatherworking and a leatherworking needle, and I just begin to sew it on there. The one thing here is I'm kind of lazy with sewing, so I did not use every hole that I had punched for the leather. Instead, I keep the stitch long on the leather side and short when it comes through to the Velcro side so that the stitch doesn't interfere with the Velcro's mechanism. Now we'll get to gluing that patch over the grommet, and I'm using contact cement. The way that contact cement works is you just paint it real thinly on both surfaces, and then you let it dry. Once it's dry, it's very tacky, and when you place it face to face, the surfaces stick extremely well. So let's give it a test fit. It turns out that it's probably easier to have someone help you put it on because you can really only use, because it takes two hands and it's hard to do it with one hand, but now he's got a full-on bracer. You can give it a few tests with the sheath on, and then he'll take off the sheath and try it out. You see right away he hit himself on the back of the wrist, so it's a good thing he had this protection on. I had a lot of fun doing this. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up. I'll catch you in the next one.